Live, going live. Take it away.
I don't see it live, Jordan.
That's okay. It's coming.
Okay. It'll show up in 30 seconds lag. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time today to log on to this call on a Saturday at 3 p.m. We chose this time because we're hoping as many people as possible could get involved. I will keep everything pretty direct, and I want to give everybody as much information as possible. But again, I just want to say thank you for your support. Thank you for taking the time to fill out that survey. It was really helpful to see where everybody's head is at. And we spent a while going through the survey to make sure that we kind of pulled it out into themes to make sure we're not too redundant. And we're just going to answer everything in themes. And if there's something that you think we may have missed, please feel free to write your questions in the comments on YouTube. And Jordan, our tech support and Purple Belt, will do his best to make sure he fields those questions and gets them to us. Again, please put comments in the YouTube channel if you have questions during the call. Next thing, everything we're speaking about today, it's important to keep in mind that everything is fluid. That's the beauty of martial arts, jiu-jitsu, and Muay Thai is like to dominate, you must be comfortable in the uncertainty. And if you're staying fluid and like rolling with the punches, if you will, we're going to find our way through this. We just have to sort of pay attention to what's happening out there. So please just to remind you that everything we're giving today, there's nothing really concrete, but it's just what we know. We're going to be as transparent as possible to give you everything we know. The next thing, just a heads up on who's on the call, who else will be speaking. Ian Lieberman from Denver, Valor Caballero from Centennial, Elliot Marshall, Alex Huddleston, and Sean Madden. They will be fielding some questions throughout this, and feel free to ask if you have anything direct for them. Shoot it in the YouTube channel. Sometimes I say that at like 3:02 and I'm done, and I'm like, maybe I should have waited a little bit because people are probably just logging in and missed the whole intro. Oh well. Anyway, next piece. This is what we will be covering. It's gonna break up into three main sections. Housekeeping, basic things that everybody asked that are just like a black and white answer, nothing really too involved. So we'll go through that first. That'll be pretty quick. Next up is what happened with Castle Rock and what's going on there. And after that, we'll go into the main question is when and how and what are we going to reopen and what does that look like? A little bit on private lessons and how we're going to be shaping that up moving forward. The health of the business, we'll talk about that. And then we're going to discuss a little bit of just the money, like the money you've been paying, maybe discuss a little bit of the PPP and the EIDL disaster loans. And then we'll dive into maybe a couple ideas that members had that we want to discuss. All right. So to jump right in, and again, thanks again for being here. I really appreciate everybody taking the time to sit in and watch this. So the housekeeping. A lot of this will be based around Castle Rock a little bit because they had a lot of questions. Maybe I should start with that. So as of Wednesday, we had to close down Castle Rock. And I'll get more into why a little bit later on, but that's why there'll be a lot of Castle Rock based questions today. So one of the main questions was, are we still members at other locations? Yes. Like if Castle Rock is closed, you're still members at all the locations. So that is a yes. And we'll go into better details that you hear in a minute. As far as like refunds, some people have asked about refunds for their private lessons or what's going to happen with their membership fees that they already paid. What we're asking, if you're looking for a refund, we just request that you give us 7 days to figure out the finance to see what that looks like. We're going to make sure you're taken care of. Like if you know me at all, if you know us at all, we are always going to make sure people are taken care of. We're going to do our best to figure out the best way, but I guarantee you will be okay. Like we're going to make sure you're taken care of when you ask those questions. Just give us a couple days. We've only known about Castle Rock since Wednesday, right? So it's all very new. Next question is, are we going to be rehiring the same coaches for Castle Rock? And this kind of is across the board for any school. we are going to hire back as quickly as we can, but it's based on the capacity of the students we get back when we open, right? So if we only get back, a third of the students, we can't hire back all the coaches at what they're making, right? So we have to like follow, hire back in phases, and the staff are very aware of this. We communicate with them often. You can ask them, like they know we're doing our best to try to make sure they are taken care of, and they're aware as well. Another big thing, it was asked like Zoom classes, since Castle Rock is closed, can they still attend Zoom classes? Of course, Zoom is open for all. Like if you have friends that never did jujitsu before, they're welcome to log into those Zoom classes and anything we put out there currently. Elliot? You're muted, buddy.
Sorry, guys. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining in. As Mike said, I just wanted to reiterate what Mike was saying there and just kind of speak on the closed portion of Castle Rock for a second. That location is closed, and Mike's going to get into this in a little bit in the sense with the real estate issues that we had. So that location is closed. Castle Rock is going to be our very main focus once this all passes, right? Like, so just so that we understand, just so that you all understand that closed is like, yeah, sure, that we're not going to go back to that location. Closed as in no Castle Rock, not true, right? Like we will, there's Castle Rock still. So just want to jump in there and make sure that everyone understands that piece so clearly, that Easton Castle Rock is not closed. Easton Castle Rock at that location is closed.
Yes. So that's next up. One more piece, and maybe Logan can put this in the chat box. One thing we saw a lot of, everybody's appreciated the communication, but sometimes it's hard to find where everything is. So if you go to our homepage, there's the resource hub and a red button. You click on that and everything you need should be there for the most part, right? Like we had to pivot really quickly with our business model and we had to shift everything over there, and we're still getting it right. But if you need information, most of it is on Resource Hub. That is where it's centrally located. There's a bulletin board there now that puts up, that's a living bulletin board, that anything that's happening, you can click on it and just see what's going on. So the Resource Hub is a great source of information just to collectively see everything we are doing. So please check that out if you need it. All right, so let's get into some of the more, what you've been waiting for, and some of the more heavier details. So we sent out the email yesterday about Castle Rock and what's happening there, but I wanted to clarify a lot more of that now. So first and foremost, the closure of Castle Rock was strictly a real estate decision, which means we have no hard feelings against the landlords. Like, as you know, some of you know the landlords, they're part of their student body. And we like the location and all that, but we signed that lease in March 2019 when we bought that location from Chris and Ethan. And something happened in January 2020 that was really unexpected. And it was an increase in taxes on the land that added $3,000 a month to our rent. And I don't know how much you know about, martial arts schools financials, but they're pretty thin margins. So that significantly cut into us operating at full capacity. It was quite difficult to operate at full capacity. Even like when we're at full capacity, that extra $3,000 a month really hurt. But we're like, we're going to make it through this. We'll find a way, because it wasn't the owner's fault. Like they got hit with the taxes and they had to pass it through to us. So we're dealing with it. But when we were forced to close because of the coronavirus, it became something that we could not sustain any longer. To reiterate, it was not the fault of the current landlords. We don't hold any ill will towards them, but we could not continue to pay that high of rent when we're not bringing in nearly the revenue we were before. Like we were pretty low down on the amount of students that we had. 70% had already canceled or suspended. So we couldn't keep paying that bill. So it was a strictly real estate decision that was not sustainable. And when jiu-jitsu is allowed to open again, right, we are going to be the ones in Castle Rock that will open a jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai school. It is really important to remember that. This was a decision that was very difficult, did not come too easy, but we had to make, and we are going to open Castle Rock again. It just has to wait till when we can. Elliot?
Yeah. So as far as what Mike's saying right there, like we can't sign a lease right now. We can't just move into a new building right now. That would be insanity. So we just have to wait, right? We just have to wait for all of this to pass, and then we will make the moves immediately. Our first role, or our first business, as we said earlier, is going to be how to reopen Easton Castle Rock for BJJ and Muay Thai as soon as we can, with zero delay in your training. We hope it won't look any different than any of the other schools as far as the day that everyone is back on the mats and training full jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, like we all hope to be soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Elliot. Alex.
Yeah. As most of you know, I'm sure we have a lot of students from Castle Rock. This is a place that is very dear to my heart. It means a lot to me, this group of humans who have pulled together and created this incredible family, both in jiu-jitsu and with the Muay Thai kickboxing, the incredible kids program. While we may be separate right now, I just really want to impress on everyone that we are not alone, and that Easton's community is still very much alive. So while there is some restructuring happening and there are changes that we'll have to kind of sit with that are, let's be honest, uncomfortable right now, the overarching theme of our community is still here, right? And Easton Castle Rock is still very much a part of that. And I really appreciate everyone's patience as we work through this together and find the most skillful path for all of us.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate that. Okay, so a couple more things about Castle Rock. Like we said, we're going to work out the auto pays. All auto pays have been shut down, and we're going to go into, just give us till next week to kind of finalize details, and we will be in contact with you. And please reach out to me with any questions you have. Again, my email, Jordan can put it in the chat box. It's mike@eastontc.com. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk with any questions you may have. And another thing, just for everybody that's listening, to remind you that Castle Rock is an isolated incident based around real estate. It doesn't reflect the health of Easton as a whole. It's really important to keep that in mind. As Elliot said earlier to me, it was like, man, he's like, as long as his kids are reading, Easton will exist, right? It's just going to be just some time and some uncomfortableness to sit in. Okay. There may be some more questions you have around Castle Rock, but we kind of lumped those questions that were collectively asked throughout all the academies. So if some of your questions weren't answered yet, just wait to the next theme that we're hitting upon, which is when and how are we going to reopen, and all the stuff that falls into that box. That's the next section. Before that begins, Ian, I'd appreciate if you said kind of what you said earlier.
Yeah. So first of all, guys, my name's Ian. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the general manager in Denver, and I appreciate all you guys, being here. I think one of the things that I want to say is this is all very difficult because there's so much uncertainty and there's so much unknown, and the waters are murky. But the one thing that I really want to say is our intentions are, like, our North Star has always been the well-being of all of our students and the instructors and our community as a whole. So, well, obviously, there's nothing we want more than to be able to open and have things be exactly like they were on March 12th, which was the day before we had to close. We are committed to doing everything we can to ultimately get there. And we are always trying to make the best decisions we can with the information that we have currently on hand. And as you guys know, that seems to be changing on a daily basis. I think one of the hard things about this certainly is that there's a lot of obviously different camps of thought around COVID and around what we should be doing as a society, and frankly, what we should be doing at Easton. And the hard part is we're all trying to do this difficult tightrope walk where we're prioritizing different things, like our health, and when I say our health, I mean the health of all of our students, our staff, and Easton, the health of the public, our community, and just the fact that we miss training and being together. So as typical as is typical with like situations that are as complex and there's so many different variables and details, some of these priorities seem to run in resistance to each other. But there is an answer and there is a right answer, and we are going to find it, and we are all really working hard to get there. And I just feel like it's important to say, because I feel like certainly for those of you who I've spoken to, and I feel like every time I open talk about this, I'm speaking in very vague terms, but the truth is our intentions are crystal clear. And I think it's super important that all of you guys know that we love all of you, and we're doing everything we can to get everything back on track. And what's awesome, and what everybody's already alluded to, is we will get back on track for sure. It's just important that you guys know that, that is our ultimate goal, is to get right back to where we were before all this happened, and it will happen. Yeah, and I appreciate it. I appreciate your patience.
Thank you, Ian. Alex?
Gotcha, man. I want to double down on what Professor Ian was saying there, what everyone has been saying. It's so important to me that I'll reiterate it again, right? First off, I would like to say just thank you to all of our community. Your ability to see past this difficult time and to be there for each other, I have witnessed just over and over again, right? Like it is something that honestly, it's hard not to get emotional about, to watch our community care for each other in a way that has nothing to do with on the mats, but who we are as human beings. And I just bow to everyone here on this call, everybody on the YouTube. Our entire community is so special. And I think that like that kind of plays into a little bit why this is so difficult for all of us, right? That there's so much fear and uncertainty, and this can leave us feeling really stressed out, incredibly anxious, and almost powerless, right, on what we can do. It drains us emotionally, can trap us in these downward spirals of this just endless worst case scenario thinking, right? And honestly, this fear, it looks like it can push us into some polarizing thinking, like we're losing our ability to see that, see clearly what's going on, like Professor Ian was mentioning. I think that for me, when I feel this disconnected, I try really hard to ground myself back into reality, which for all of us is the Easton's community. These polarizing ideas on how to move forward, they don't seem like a super useful paradigm, given that most of our experience plays out as a continuum, right? Like there's this middle path that is encompassing all of our needs and most of our wants. And our community is constantly working towards that path, right? As we skillfully strive to navigate these rough waters, I just would like to remind everyone what we already know. It's just sometimes it's hard to remember that every storm runs out of rain, and that as these waters begin to settle, we will gradually regain the ability to see clearly the next most skillful steps that include our entire community benefiting. And I just ask that all of us keep that in mind, that even at home, right? Like when we're having a hard day, it's as simple as keeping your loved ones at the forefront of your intention. Let's do that as a community with Easton's as well.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, very, very nicely said, both of you. I appreciate your insights on this, and I think it's really important to hear that right now. And I think the reason I think those things are important to understand, everybody, we're going to get into this now with the opening portion of today's, town hall, because it's important to remember that we do have the best intentions for everybody involved. Like we really, really are trying to gather every piece of information to do the right thing. That is always our intention. And it's just always remembering, like when maybe something hits you and you're in an emotional state, that we don't have any ill intentions. We're always trying to figure out how to get Easton open so we can serve the community like we've done for 20 years, right? And that is our intention. And if you ever feel a certain way, if you're unsure, if you think we're not being transparent, that is never our intention. I think some of you may know me, some of you may know people in this call, but man, there's nothing more important to me in this world than authenticity. And I mean that. So if you do have something that you're unsure about, send it to me. Send me the question. You can vent to your friends, you can make posts, whatever it is. But if you want the truth, if you want the answer, send me an email. I will talk to you about whatever you want to talk about. I will help you. Maybe you'll disagree with me, but I'll give you the truth. So please feel free. And that doesn't go for just me. That goes for anybody in this call, but I mean that. Anyway, I think important. Elliot. Okay, just sitting forward. All right. So Alex had this good idea to kind of break this down into the reopen portion of like kind of who, what, where, and like why is what's going on. So the first thing is who's making the decisions, and what are we looking to decide to open, right? So who's making the decisions? It's a collection, right? It's the owners, the leadership, and leadership is anybody that's like in the admin side, a general manager, on the HQ team, the owners, right? It's a large group of individuals that we hear from. There's also the students. We listen to what the students have to say. That's why we keep sending out surveys. We want to hear your thoughts because we know that the collective thinking around this is definitely a way to learn and pull out some really good information, and make the best educated decision. And I guess at the end of the day, the decisions are the smaller group, but we're listening to everybody, and the staff also. We always want to hear from the staff. And another big piece, two main ones are the medical community. Like, what is the medical community saying? Like, Elliot's connected with a lot of doctors. We're reading like medical journal papers. We're following everything we can. We have teams around paying attention to what's going on, as well as, Elliot and Sean, who are really connected to both of their communities, Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai. They know what's happening at all the schools everywhere, and they're paying close attention to what's happening. So we're watching the entire industry to see the best way to move forward, their failures and their successes. So we're studying. This is all we are doing. Another big part of it is the government, right? We do have to pay attention to the government guidelines and compliance. Now, this is where the polarization comes into place a little bit, and I'm going to chat about this for a moment. The government, right? Maybe they're too strict, and maybe people are okay because they're healthy and they think they should be training anywhere. But we are also a business that if we decide to open our doors, we are easily shut down by the government. We get fined, you could lose our business license, and then Easton is stuck in this government tornado, and who knows when we can get out of it and get the allowed to reopen again, right? So we have to be careful of, just because we're excited to train and we feel healthy and we're fit that demographic of like the most healthy people, the lowest likely to get contracted this, it still doesn't mean we can just jump and open, because we can't risk our whole entire lives. Go ahead, Elliot.
Yeah, I'll be super honest with everyone. I don't agree with everything the government says, like, and all the guidelines necessarily, but that doesn't mean that I don't. And for me personally, and for us as a business, that we don't have to follow the rules still, right? That, like, there's a big difference there for us. Sure, I mean, what Mike just said, I think we are a healthy population. I think that we are very fit. And if you look at all the statistics and yada, yada, and you guys can understand that we agree with you, right? That 99.999% of young, healthy people are health can get this, and 70% won't even feel it, and 99 will survive. We get that. We totally understand that. But that has nothing to do with what we are legally allowed to do. And then what will happen to us if we don't follow the law. We will be stuck in not opening for a very long time, way past COVID.
Exactly. So you can see how our hands are a little bit tied, but it doesn't mean we aren't prepping and preparing. So there was another question that I thought was a good question, and it was, what are we doing with the government? Like, how are we lobbying? Are we trying to like get our names out there so they open us up? We are not lobbying, and we have reasons behind why we're not. We do have individuals that do work close with Polis. They don't lobby for us, but they stay very connected to what's happening. And the reason we're not lobbying is because of the way the guidelines are being put out right now. If we make more of a stink around jiu-jitsu, like, people are gonna be like, no way, we're not gonna let you get in a group of 20 people and sweat all over each other, or even 10. Right? Because right now it's like social distance, 6 feet apart with masks on in a building with only 4 people. So that like that alone makes it really difficult to even come close to where jiu-jitsu can get in place. So we're not trying to get on the target, but we are connected to the government. Elliot?
Enzo said it best. Just ask for forgiveness. Don't start asking for permission. Right? Like we're not out there asking the government, explaining it is what we can do, because they're going to say no very quickly. We don't want to shine the light on ourselves. So to follow up there, like, you know, we'll say sorry later if something happens, but we're not going to be like shining it on us.
Yeah. So this goes into the next portion of this, which is what steps are we taking to get open? And this is important. The problem with this one is that the line it's a target that keeps moving, that we try to pay attention to, but it's pretty difficult to do that. So precautions, like we've thought about all the sanitary things out there. I know you've seen what gyms are doing. Like we have all that written down and ready to go and launch. I'm not going to go into details. Open up the best gym in the world, or best martial arts gym in the world, and how they're going to do it. Like, yeah, we have that dialed. So we already have thought about the precautions as far as like sanitary purposes goes. And then as far as like how we'll open, whether we'll use locker rooms or not, whether people will change in their car versus in the academy. We've thought about all these things. So we have everything chambered, right, when we get okay to open. So we've really gone deep into this. We had a team working on gathering all the information and putting it together. So when compliance reaches okay, we have the precautions that are reasonable, obviously, ready to go. That being said, we don't know when we're going to reopen, but it's important to note that it'll probably come in phases for sure. And before I jump into those phases, I want you guys to think about the classifications of what's been happening with compliance. There's gyms, right? And we do not fall into any of the compliance that gyms currently fall under, right? Even with Muay Thai or kickboxing or jiu-jitsu, gyms right now, the compliance is 4 people in a space, like separated with masks. And that's just something we cannot do with our current business with kickboxing or jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai. There's also the part, there's no contact with social distancing is a big deal. So that piece really doesn't include us yet. And we could offer even private lessons. We'd have to be a family member because people have to touch in private lessons. What we fall closer under is the nightclub category, which is disheartening, of course, but that category has been pretty explicit because it's literally lots of people in a room sweating on each other. That falls closer into where we fall under, which is not fun to talk about or to admit. But if you ignore like the titles like gym, kickbox, nightclubs, and just look at the compliance pieces, that's where we fall under, like have to follow these guidelines. And that's where it's been difficult to just say, yeah, we're just going to open with gyms. It's been an impossibility. Like there's been plenty of places from California to New York that have tried to open and they've been shut down. And we can't risk that. We're paying attention, but we can't risk that. So if we got into an idea, just a brief idea of like what you'd be looking at when we reopen. And let's just talk about schools that offer Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu right now. We could open maybe on the 26th, maybe with some kickboxing with 6 bags, with bags 6 feet apart, whatever requirements they say we can have in a space at a given time with the sanitary precautions in place. The difficulty here is that they're still requiring masks. And the masks, rebreathing that CO2 is really unhealthy. And we know the kickboxing classes are intense and hard. So that could be difficult. I'm not saying we can't do it, but that is like looking at our first step. And if we can do that, that does open the door for potentially family classes in jiu-jitsu, meaning you and your wife can train, you and your brother, something along those lines, right? And maybe small private lessons with a family member or monogamous partners. So those, if we can open for kickboxing, it does open the door for all those other areas for jiu-jitsu to start happening in some way, shape, or form. And then moving a little bit further down the line, we could start moving into, okay, you can sign up for classes. These are the 10 people you can do at this class at this time. We just have to wait for compliance. We have a lot of ideas around it, but nothing allows it yet. So as soon as the allowance is there and we know what that allowance is, we will present that to you. We'll be transparent with all of it. Anybody?
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mike, I was just going to say, so much of this depends on kind of what's going on in the other places and stuff as well, right? Like you kind of mentioned that it's a moving target a little bit, and there are places that are opening up a little bit more than Colorado or where we are, and it's going to kind of depend on what happens in those places, right? Whether or not we're going to be able to do similar stuff, their success or failure, that is.
I think explicitly it'll be the government too, watching like what's happening in Texas or Minnesota, maybe, right? And they'll go ahead, Elliot.
So I think some people have been watching like the news, and maybe you've seen some other jiu-jitsu schools and Muay Thai schools open. No one has had any contact with each other yet, right? I think that's a key thing to point out here. There have been some solo drilled classes inside of a box that have happened. I'm very I pay attention a lot on social media, and I talk to a lot of people all over the world, and most I shouldn't say the world, all over the country about what's happening. And I know Sean does, as Mike said earlier. Sean, I don't believe any Muay Thai schools have opened up yet and had contact with a student yet, right? Like just movement drills in a space. I don't think anybody's even let anybody hit a bag yet, have they?
If there have, it's less than a handful,
Right.
And exactly like Elliot said, it's only limited to a bag. There's no partner drills. There's no pad work I've seen yet. Like they said, there's a couple states that are ahead of us right now, but they're moving very, very cautiously. And we're kind of watching to see what they're doing too. But I have not seen any partner drills in any Muay Thai schools that are open yet.
Mike, one more thing. I know some of you have seen, I know we might not have planned to answer this question, but I'll get ahead of it just in case. Some of the fighters, right? So the UFC has they haven't forced, but they forced, right? They're fighting. They're holding events. So, and it will be held against these guys if they don't sign these contracts. So they are, whether they say it or don't say it, they're stuck a little bit. They've got to train. So yes, we have set up situations for the fighters to be able to train so that when they walk into that cage, it doesn't harm them. Like if they don't lose terribly, because they have no other option. So just so that you guys are aware of what's going on with the fighters, like it's not the Elevation Fight Team is not holding practices. We are holding small 2 to 3 people in a space, clean heavily afterwards situations where these guys can train. So there's not training going on by the fight team still as a whole.
Yeah. That's a good point. And something that I wanted to add in here. Some of you may be paying closer attention to what's happening with compliance or ordinances across the state. And what we are looking at specifically is not county by county. We're looking at where we're allowed to do at all of our schools, because we want to do it all at once. So if Denver has this ordinance, so they can't do this, and say Meade County or Weld does not, we're not going to follow Weld or Meade's lead. We're trying to make sure we open collectively at that time. So far, that's where our current head is at. But again, moving target.
Like we could change our mind on that. So don't hold us to the fire on that, please.
Yeah, please don't. We get it. This has been hard. Trust us. Okay. So, and then why are we making these decisions? Like, why are we at this point, right? It is the consequences, right? Like the couple things. It's the health of the students. We want to make sure we're doing the right thing, whether they believe it's the right thing or not, that we're making the educated decisions as a group. There's a lot of us chiming in on this and collectively arguing over what to do. And we come to these decisions, and it's for the students and for the staff. And it's also, we have to make sure that Easton exists when this is over, so the government doesn't shut us down. We can't become a target for the government on this right now. Things change, right? Like maybe there'll be a revolution and there'll be riots and it'll all shift, and like, who knows? But right now, this is where it's at, right? Like, well, I mean, it's honestly, right? Like, you never know what's going to happen in a few months. Like, it may just be an uprising, but like right now, I have to be honest, like this is where we're at as a leadership group. And it's important that we kind of collectively agree. Ian.
Yeah, I just want to say too, the other thing that's really great about this leadership group is that we all have different opinions, right? So, and we all get to come to the table together and talk about them openly and honestly. And again, like back to what, kind of what Alex and I were saying initially, it's like the North Star is the North Star, right? And that is you, all of your health, all the health of our community, right? And that encompasses a lot of things, not just physical health. We're taking into account our mental health, our mental space, the fact that we all miss each other. I mean, all of these things contribute. But what's really great, just so you guys know, we all have slightly different opinions, but we come to the table and we're working around the clock talking about them. So this isn't, I think that's important to say. And we're really trying to find this thing, and we're going to keep working on it. And yeah. It's all, it's a work in progress, and I think it's going to be. And we, like I said, we appreciate all of your patience, because we know that, just like all of us, we're chomping at the bit to get back to it.
Yeah, we dedicated our lives to this for a reason, because we loved training. So it's been we understand the pain you're in, for sure. We can empathize. Elliot, were you gonna say something, or no? You unmuted. I was checking. Okay, so that's most of the reopen stuff. If you have more questions around that, please add it to the chat box, and we'll try to address those at the end of these portions. So the next piece, this is kind of shorter. We kind of mostly answers this, so this may be redundant, but it did come up a few times in the survey, so I thought I would kind of touch upon it.
Mike, this person did ask a question here about the reopening. Like, what changes do we envision? Do we want to address that now or address that later? That is on the reopening.
Man, we can address it now. It's going to be different for a while.
Right.
What does different look like? Like I said before, and this is a little bit like, we have the phases in place. So what we have in place is kind of what I already said. We start with kickboxing, probably limited number of classes. We'll probably do signups. We'll most likely do all the sanitization stuff that everybody's asking. We'll probably do the temperature checks. We'll probably have a new waiver that'll be signed. Like, don't be concrete. This is just thoughts of what's going to be envisioned. So Valor first, what were you going to say?
Yeah, no, and I know they asked about like parents and kids and like things that will be done to protect them. My guess will be that at the beginning there's going to be some pretty small limitations on how many people can be there. And so I know, just to kind of touch on the parents, most likely, and again, none of this is concrete, but what most likely would happen there is that we might be Zooming classes for parents to watch or whatever, but that they won't really be physically able to come in and sit and watch the classes like they were before. So there'll be some changes, but we will certainly do everything that we can to make it as comfortable for people as possible, right? So again, like I just used that as an example with the kids.
Go ahead, Elliot.
As Mike mentioned earlier as well, probably limit the locker rooms, like, just to answer your question of what we ensure, limit the locker room use, ask you to come dressed, sanitize before you walk on the mat, sanitize after you leave the mat. Things like that are the things that we're going to be doing to, like, and you can find this everywhere, I believe. So, and again, nothing held in stone. And then, as Valor touched on, just to sum it all up, right? Like, they're going to limit, most likely, we're assuming, limit the amount of people that can be in the space, right? So therefore, we won't be allowing spectators. We are not going to allow visitors for a while. Correct, Mike?
Correct. No visitors from other schools.
No visitors from other schools or from out of town. So, and these are just the steps. So as far as the changes of what we're envisioning to protect, Tom, I hope that answers your question to the best that we can. Ask away more if you need.
Yeah, I think that's really important to know. And I bet something that's probably on a lot of people's mind are like, are we going to do solo classes, like with bags? And we've discussed this, and I know where my head is at on it. What I've seen with the solo bag classes,
Can I jump in on that,
yeah,
Mike?
go ahead.
I think that, like, kind of what we'll always kind of reference back to that North Star, like Professor Ian was talking about. The goal will always be to keep our community as safe as possible as we utilize martial arts as a vehicle for personal development. So some classes may look differently from what they were before. There might be solo classes, there might be monogamous partner classes. They'll always be under that that underlying theme of how do we keep each other safe as we move forward? Because unfortunately, there have been some schools that have tried to open earlier than recommended, and I personally know a school in the Midwest that had to be shut down after it was traced to a COVID outbreak from their students training together. So our goal will always be to keep our students safe first and foremost, and we're going to be working very hard to provide martial arts in a way that keeps that core value at the forefront.
Cool. Thank you, Alex. Okay. All right. So the next one, this is a little bit more into a little more financial stuff here. And this is like sort of case by case. Somebody asked about private lessons. Will they be offered according to government guidelines? Like I said, I already kind of spoke on that one, so I won't go into detail, but the idea is like when we can reopen for kickboxing, we can reopen for private lessons, which hopefully can be really soon. But keep in mind, like, though we can reopen for that, that means we'd have to start paying staff to do those things. And that's a whole nother ballgame of what that looks like for us to be able to pay the staff and our regular bills to open the facility back up. It's a lot more involved with the financial side. And it's a tricky balance we're trying to walk. And we'll get into that with the PPP and the EIDL disaster loans. But yes, ideally we'd like to be offering these private lessons, but we have to be open as a business to be able to offer private lessons. We're not a private lesson business.
And they have to stop the social distancing guidelines. Like like if they say you can open, but with social distancing, we can open with a family doing a private lesson, like a brother and a sister, right? But we can't open, like you just can't come do a private lesson with me. Like if we got caught doing that, that'd be a nightmare.
And we have to be practical about this, right? Like if say we have 30 families that want to do that, we can't just suddenly open our gyms up for that. Like we're still a business. We have to make sure we do the right thing, practically and intelligently. Okay. They want to know about, will private lessons be included as part of the Easton membership fee? And this is a tough question. And this is where we're going to be honest with you. Like, we're really unsure about what the future looks like for us, right? When I say us, I mean Easton, the staff, Easton, the people that work here. And right now, like where we're sitting is every dime that someone pays to us is supporting us to help us come out of this when we can reopen. Right. So if you look at it, when we closed our doors, we had a massive influx of suspensions and cancellations. And every week it dropped about 10% memberships. Right. So we've dropped almost 70% at this point, which is not a lot of money left to pay the bills that we still have to pay besides the staff. Right. So, and as time goes on, those memberships will keep dropping and there'll be less money to pay those bills. Right. So right now we're looking at that money that comes in as a way to support us. So when we reopen, we can still be here to exist for at the end and bring everybody and bring people back to work and still pay our leases and still pay our bills. Yeah, go ahead, Elliot.
So I think I should probably touch on it here as one of the majority owners, Amal and I. Amal and I were not stupid. We did not spend every dime in the bank accounts before all of this. So there was savings, right? We have always prepared for a disaster type situation. I guess we couldn't quite envision this disaster type situation. This was a very difficult one to foresee. So there is savings, and we do appreciate everything that everyone has continued to pay, but we don't know how long this will last. And we have to be able to sustain the business for as long as we can with the money that we have. So running a very bare bones operation, spending nothing, right? And keeping as much cash on hand as we possibly can. Like, that would be amazing to be able to do that. And then figuring it out on the back end when this all ends, and then we can see what it looks like rather than making any promises now.
Yeah, that's really important. And like the support we've seen has been overwhelming. Like, it's amazing to have that community, and we really appreciate it. And it's still scary. And like the tough thing about all this is, like, Muay Thai and kickboxing, if this stuff changes, could really save us, man. They could really be there to like carry us out of this. And thank goodness we've had that, right? The downside is the jujitsu is maybe the worst possible like sport you could do. I mean, wrestling, I guess, for high school, right? For this pandemic, like I've been trying to think of something worse than jujitsu, like in the light of what's happening. This business is in. It's like, man, when are they gonna let jujitsu happen in a business setting? And because it's so uncertain, we're trying to do everything we can to be bare bones. Like we've canceled everything, right? Even our trash pickups, like we're not using it obviously, but every dollar has been watched to try to cut back so we can keep extending this lifeline, right? So again, we appreciate that. We're going to get into all the other money stuff in a minute, and we'll pretty much end there. And we'll field questions, but just to go back what I said earlier, and I want to remind everybody this in case you missed it. One, everything is uncertain, especially with jiu-jitsu, because it hasn't really been discussed on the government side yet, or like there's been no nations yet that we've seen from China and so on that have been in this, that have been able to really open it at any type of capacity that we know of. And maybe you know more than us, but and I'd love to hear more, but I'm curious what people are doing. But because of the uncertainty, I know things are a little bit scary. That being said, Easton as a whole, like the staff, like the coaches that you hold near and dear, the front desk employees, the administration team, the leadership team, we are making sure everybody is taken care of. You know, we're paying very close attention to their needs. We put systems in place. We have all hands meetings. We are doing everything to stay connected with them on every level. And that's from making sure they signed up for the right unemployment, because unemployment right now is actually really helping them out, because a lot of our staff, like probably 90% of our staff was part-time. So they either had other jobs, or the ones that didn't have other jobs and were working part-time, they were able to apply for unemployment, and they ended up receiving, you know, a good amount of money. Like each staff member that's on unemployment, on top of their unemployment, receives $600 extra a week, right? So they're making really good money right now than what they would be making as a part-time employee. So we're making sure they're taken care of financially. We're making sure they're taken care of like mentally. We're checking in with them on that. And the other side of it is there's also been staff that have not been able to collect unemployment because they maybe didn't live in Colorado last year, or they didn't work the year before because they were, and this is important for you to know, because I want to make sure you understand how much we're paying attention. Maybe they didn't work the year before because they were pregnant or raising their kids. Maybe they stuck with a job that was like, 15 hours a week, but they were working with us 25 hours a week. Because they still had that 15-hour job, the unemployment rejected them. So those individuals that fell through the cracks, we're also connecting with them, and we're making sure they're getting paid as well. We're finding ways to make sure they find money so they can still get through this. We're paying close attention to make sure everybody is taken care of. And I just want to make sure you all know that. Go ahead, Elliot.
So I mean, mine skipped out for a sec, Mike, but Nara, your question here, are they necessarily getting paid from us? It's a case-by-case basis. Alex is on the call, is getting paid from us. Coaches that are doing better on unemployment are not getting paid from us. So it is case by case, Nara, and we, Mike and Valor and Ian, and have done an amazing job of communicating with every staff member and every GM to make sure that every one of our staff members is doing okay. And I will reassure you that if that were not going to be the case, that we would definitely jump in and make sure that they were okay. So we are not going to let any of our staff lose their house, go hungry, or anything like that. We will do everything we can in our power to make sure that does not happen.
Yeah, Valor.
I would just say, just to add on to that, I mean, I think that for all of us, and I could probably speak for everybody on the call and the GMs and stuff as well, but I mean, that extends beyond the staff and stuff too, like caring about the students the same way, all the students that I've been in touch with, if they have a need or something that we can help address, we've been trying to do that as well. And that's just, what we're always going to try to do. So, we're not going to leave the staff hanging, and if at all possible, we're not going to leave the students hanging either. We're just going to continue to be here for each other, throughout this.
Go ahead.
Mike, again, just to touch on John Crane's question about the coming back and stigmas, man, we have so many people in our community, John. We have gay people, we have transgender people, we have Black people and Muslims and Jews and Christians, and jiu-jitsu is a place where we all come together, and all of that gets put aside, and jiu-jitsu will continue to be that place. Muay Thai will continue to be that place. Easton will be that place. So there's no way that we are going to allow any stigmas or any type of disagreement on how you stand on these issues to affect what goes on in the schools. It never has, and it never will. As so just be rest assured there. No.
Yeah. So I hope that clarifies your question. Just to reiterate that last point, because I think Nara, I know part of the concerns have been other coaches still getting paid. We are making sure every coach is making the money they need to be making, and if they're not, we are paying them. And there's been windows where dealing with the government and the stimulus stuff hasn't been easy. So the GMs have helped people walk through their unemployment stuff to make sure that they're taken care of. And also, we are paying attention to if there were gaps in unemployment, which have happened. We're trying to gather that information as well to make sure any money we can, we're trying to give them as well. I hope that makes sense. Because gaps happened, especially when filing for unemployment, or because they missed, a detail on the form, we're still going to make them square. We haven't been able to do it yet, but we're starting to collect the information now with all the employees. One thing that Easton is really, really great at, and what we really strive to be great at, in my opinion, is communication. And that goes with the students, but with the staff, right? We have, maybe you're all students, you don't know this, but I think it's important to know that we have stuff in place, that we have one-on-ones with every staff member. We have meetings with every staff member. We have check-ins with every staff member. We are constantly making sure that we are connected, not with what they're doing at work. That's 10% of it, but 90% of it is how they're doing at home. And that is something, as you know, if you do martial arts, it is a really big part of what we try to do and push forward. We try to really live this way. So hope that helps answer that question. I use my hands a lot when I talk. I see it on the YouTube. It's 30 seconds behind. And then all of a sudden my hands are doing this. I'm like, what is that? Anyway, you don't get it. You had to be there. So let's see, moving on. We already kind of answered this, but since another question that sort of came up, where's my money going? What is happening with the PPP and the EIDL? And, those things, we kind of already talked about this, but I feel like it's good to reiterate this so we can close out. So where your money is going, you're paying it, and then we're trying to make sure we have runway to open. We kind of already answered that question. And then the PPP and the EIDL loans, for those of you that aren't dealing with this nastiness of SBA loans and government work, the PPP is the Payment Protection Program, and the EIDL is the economic disaster loan program. I forget the actual acronym, but what that is doing is the PPP is something that we collected, and it doesn't work for a business unless that business can open back up and hire their employees, right? So if we took that money, we did take it, we're going to give it back most likely, because we'd have to hire everybody back, use that money to get it forgiven, and then we'd have to lay them all off again, right? And the problem is, if we hired them back, we'd actually be making a lot less money than they would on the unemployment. That's one piece of it. But the other struggle is if it's not forgiven, and it's pretty hard to get it forgiven, at least currently the way it is set up, it is due in 2 years with 1% interest, right? So if we had, hundreds of thousands of dollars, we'd have to pay that back in 2 years with interest. And we don't even know, we can't guarantee we're going to be open then, but that bill and debt would still be due. So that is one side of it. And that's why we're a little scared to touch it. Go ahead, Elliot. You're muted, sorry.
Yep. So just so you understand, it has to be paid back in full in 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. So the payments start in 6 months. You get 6 months of deferment on payments on anything that isn't forgiven. And if any of you guys else are business owners out there that got a PPP loan and you have figured out how to get it forgiven, and know that you know how to, we have lots of ideas here, right? Like we have spreadsheets upon spreadsheets of ways to try,
bankers,
attorneys,
and
bankers, yeah, accountants, on how to try to really make sure that this gets forgiven. But I'll just use a round number here. Just I don't want, as the business owner, which is Amal and I, and some small parts with the other guys, I don't want a $500,000 grant to turn into a $500,000 loan that then has to start being paid on within 6 months when we might not be open. So yes, we have it. Yes, we haven't touched it. Same with the EIDL. Yes, we have it. Yes, we haven't touched it, because those are huge loans to have to all of a sudden not be prepared for a loan when we think it's going to be forgiven. I hope that made sense. It's super complicated.
I can outline it backwards for you. So it was a rushed idea. And the reason it was rushed and not really thought through is because the people it's meant to save, say restaurants and businesses like us, it is meant to hire their staff back, right? So they hire their staff back, pay them, they meant to lay their staff off right away. But their staff are making way less money when you hire them back because of what it's offering. So the people that are using them are the individuals that are still thriving, because basically what happens is they're in the construction business and their business didn't slow down. So they could use that loan, get 2.5 months of free payroll and just keep moving on and get it forgiven, right? So that's a big thing. We can't just hire people back when we don't know we're going to open. And in the EIDL, same thing. If we start using that, right, and say Jiu-Jitsu says you can't open for 6 months or 12 months, like say it's something crazy like that, that bill is still due, and we may not have money coming in to pay that bill. That's like how I looked at it. So it's great if you're a business that is still able to stay open. If you're not sure when you can open, it can really fuck you. Sorry for the bad language. That was the first time I cursed today.
Yes, it was. Good job, Mike. Good job. You were bad the other day.
It was just an attorney. It was okay.
Yeah. So just to reiterate what Mike's saying here, right? Like we have both loans, and they're going to sit there until until the payments start. So, and then we'll make a decision on whether to give them back or not. And that is solely because we don't know how long this lasts. If we have to use them to save the business, which we're nowhere near having to do yet. Okay. Just to reiterate, we'll do that. We'll go into debt to save the business, but we're not going to go into debt right now to not save the business. That's for like, that's silliness.
So that's pretty much the whole theme of questions we received. It is important to us that we are transparent with you, and that is everything we know. Like we've just poured our souls out to you of what we've been working on, and questions are also always we're always happy to get questions, because maybe it brings up other ideas we didn't think of, or maybe there's something we didn't touch upon. So I like saying, if you have something that you heard that triggered you, or that you didn't understand, please ask that question, because we want to make sure you understand the same stuff we understand. That is very important to us.
Yes, Aaron, we will. The Zoom classes are going to go on for the foreseeable future, especially in the early days of reopening. Yes, to answer your question, we will probably, once we reopen, we'll probably Zoom the class. Don't hold us to it. We'll probably Zoom the class from the live class that we're teaching. But yeah, we are not going to force any of our employees to come back to work before they feel comfortable. Meaning that we also will not fire them, right? Like if we will not hold a gun to their head and say, hey, if you don't come back to work and teach right now, then you won't have your job back. That will never happen with us. Never, never. Right. So we will not force any employee to come back to work before they feel comfortable. First of all, we will force no student to come back before they feel comfortable. Second of all, and the Zoom classes will continue for the foreseeable future. Yes.
Awesome. There was something else I wanted to ask. Ian, did you put your hand up?
Yes, he did.
Please speak, buddy.
This is slightly off topic, and I don't mean for it to be jarring, but if you guys, I don't want to forget, if you guys are doing that online chess tournament, go into the messages in the app and sign up. You got it. Yeah, you got an invite. So go into the message. You have to go into the app, into the messages, and then you can accept the invite. And the other thing I wanted to say is, real quick, 1 second. Just want to make sure. So one of the things that Esteban said, and I really want to highlight this, and thank you, Esteban, for saying that, is we've already said this a few times, but I just want to put a fine point on this. If anybody ever needs to talk to any of us for any reason, whether you're down and out, whatever it is, we're all here for you. I really can't stress that enough. And thank you, Esteban, for saying that. But we're all in this together. And, I just wanted to, this is probably the last time I'm going to speak in the meeting. I just wanted to let you guys know that we're all here for you, and mean that from the bottom of my heart. So thanks, guys.
Oh, thank you, Ian. I think there's another person brought this up, and I think it's important to touch on it here. This is mostly for the Castle Rock students. All of it that happened, sorry, my son is outside my door kicking something. All of this that happened and took place with Castle Rock was extremely unexpected for us. It wasn't something we were expecting to happen, right? It was just like looking at everything, we had to make a decision fast. And it hurt. It was not, obviously we didn't enjoy it. And we put an email together and we put a communication together to try to be as open and honest as possible. But we were at the same time trying to figure out how to communicate that message. So if we said something in the emails about closing down, we were just trying to be like, that's what's happening right now. Right. So that's why I sent a follow-up email shortly afterwards saying, hey, when we can reopen in Castle Rock, we want to. We never had the intention of like scaring anybody or like frightening them or upsetting them. It was just, we're doing the best we can right now. Like we do have the best intentions, and we're going to learn from this and keep improving. Go ahead, Elliot.
Yes. So to double down on Mike, because we just got an email from somebody, right? I'm assuming they're watching this video. Any language that we had to use that might seem unsettling. Obviously we talked to some lawyers, right? So there are things that you have to say and things that you don't have to say when you go about this type of situation. So we're sorry for any hardship that might have caused you, but we do also have to protect Easton Castle Rock, first of all, right? And then second of all, everyone that's involved in the Easton situation. So that is something that we have to handle. It's not just easy. Yeah, we're out. We can't say it that simply.
Yeah. Thank you for giving us on all of that and understanding everyone. And I do believe it's important that, like, Castle Rock people, please hit us up. I want to talk to you.
If you have a question, stay off. Like, don't post it to us on social media. Right? We will not engage on social media. If you have a question and you need to know something, hit us up directly. Social media is, I don't know if you guys have read YouTube comments before. They're awful, right? Where it goes. So we will not address anything on social media. Please hit us up personally. So don't make a post and tag me or Mike or Alex or Ian and expect or want us to answer there. We will not do that.
Yeah, please send me an email and we can communicate in another form if you want. Anything else to add? Any more questions? I appreciate the positivity received from everybody that's been commenting on the YouTube channel. Like, the positivity coming from all of you means a lot. Like, just like all of you that are struggling right now, we're fighting through this, but it's been a struggle for us too. So we appreciate your support and how much you've cared about us in these times.
Karen, just to answer that question, no, we no church or school is going to let us in. As soon as we would be allowed to do that, then we're just gonna we'll figure out a place to get. We'll handle this for ourselves because we can't go into a church and train.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody have anything else to add before we chime out? No.
Just a huge thank you, man. I just want to say thank you to everybody that's on the call and everyone that's watching on YouTube. I can't express how much it means to me personally to see the amount of compassion that our community has shared with each other. My heart goes out to everyone with Castle Rock. You guys know how we feel about that, and it feels really good to be able to tell you how we feel about it. And like everyone is saying on the call, we're very human. Please, if you want to talk, if there's something that's really pressing on your heart, you have all of our contact information. Please reach out. We'd be more than happy to discuss it with you.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Have a
Guys,
wonderful day.
I'm just going to end with what I ended with in the last meeting.
Yeah, please do.
Man, I started martial arts when I was a 6-year-old. And when I was 8 years old, I knew that I wanted a martial arts school. Like it has always been my dream to have a martial arts school. And I have one now. And I'm just talking very personally, using words like I and me, which we don't use very often. But yes, I have them now. And it is because everyone that is watching on the thread, it is because all of the staff that we talked to earlier. I can't thank you all enough. And Mike said it, but I want you to hear it come from my mouth. As long as my kids eat, then there will be Easton. Okay. Like I like that is sincerely how I feel, that if I'm eating and my family is healthy and alive, we're good. Okay. I will make this happen no matter what, because this has always been my dream and I can't do it alone. And everyone on the call, as far as the staff members, Mike, Ian, Sean, Alex, thank you all, Valor. Thank you all very much, because you guys are the ones who really make this happen. And to everyone watching, man, I say thank you to everybody.
Hi, Elliot.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for not making me cry this time.
I'll do it nicer.
Yeah.
Again, the same guys goes to Elliot and Amal, right? Like just to end with this history lesson real quickly. Like Amal started this in 1998, like December 98. And it was something beautiful. And then what took it off into what it is today is when Elliot ended his fight career and turned it around, because like he said, this is what he's always wanted. And he made that happen by coming in and like, Mal, I want to be your business partner. And Amal was like, I don't want business partners. But Elliot was the only person he'd ever be a business partner with. And because of that, we get to have this massive community and we get to grow the way it did today. So Elliot, we thank you too, buddy, for everything you've done. Have a wonderful day, everybody. I look forward to all the emails. Please litter my email. I want to hear from you. Have a great day.
Take care, guys.
Thank you,
Bye, everybody.
All right,
Thanks,
everybody.
guys.
Have a good one.
Thank you, guys.
Mike, thanks, buddy. I was ready for it that time.
I tried.